What is the Counting to Calculus curriculum framework? You've been hearing me talk about counting to calculus and so on and so forth, and I think it can be very tricky. So I want to break it down. In the first part of this video, I'm going to distinguish what a curriculum is versus a curriculum framework, and then I'm going to dive into the counting to calculus curriculum framework. So curriculum framework would be more like a set of guidelines for the whole nation or the whole state. You've heard of these frameworks before, and some of them have been, controversial. Like that, a framework, for example, might tell the students in a particular state that they don't need to take calculus. That's an example. The framework might say all you need to do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you don't need calculus. There's a framework, and then within that framework, we have people that write curriculum and produce textbooks that match up to that framework. So what is the Counting to Calculus curriculum framework, the one that I put together? My Counting to Calculus curriculum framework is that every student, or the guideline is that every student gets to calculus. So that's the expectation. When do they get there? There's no limits for when they get there. My goal is that they get there by 9th or 10th grade at the latest, but they get there. Everybody gets to calculus. And then if they want to go into sociology or some field where you don't need more advanced math, they have calculus. They have that beautiful tool that they can use if they ever need it. So the curriculum framework I've written is called Counting to Calculus. And it has different textbooks and curriculums that are used, some of which have been written by other people, but it matches the goals of the curriculum framework. However, I have one more thing. This is where it gets a little interesting, because I've also written some of the tools that are used in the Counting to Calculus curriculum framework. So I've written a framework, which you can see on amosthemathguy.com. You can download the document where I show the guidelines of the topics kids need to learn. But beyond that, it's about helping students have a bigger vision. No matter what curriculum you're using, you can use the Counting to Calculus curriculum framework. It doesn't matter what curriculum you use. What matters, though, is the journey. And that's what I'm going to show in this next part of the video. I'm going to show you the journey of how to get to the highest level of math and science learning. There's different sections in this video where you'll be able to see a little bit of the different textbooks that are used in the Counting to Calculus curriculum framework. So now let's dive into the section on the Counting to Calculus sort of framework. What is this framework that Amos is trying to guide students into? We'll see you in the next section. And here we go. Counting to Calculus curriculum framework. So let's briefly talk about what the framework is. Let's talk about some of the resources available. Let's talk about if there's an online component, and then where do we go from here? Okay, ready? Let's start from the top. So the Counting to Calculus curriculum framework is something that I put together, and it basically integrates math and science learning for K-12 students, and actually university students or college students can use the materials as well. But what is this framework? The framework is basically saying that we know we're going to get here. What is here? Calculus, statistics, linear algebra, discrete math, computer science, and engineering. We know we're going to do this at some point. Now, some of these are in the career prep category. So for example, if you don't want to become a computer scientist, I'm not going to recommend that you do advanced computer science. No. But everybody in the Counting to Calculus framework can take calculus, statistics, linear algebra, discrete math, and be introduced to computer science, engineering, medicine, and technology, okay? They will be introduced to those, but everybody does the first 4 math courses or has access to those 4, no matter what grade level they're at. And that's the first rule of the Counting to Calculus curriculum framework. It is not based on your grade level. Math is a subject that should not be tied to anybody's grade level. It should be based on your mastery level of concepts. Have you mastered the necessary concepts to do the next topic? That's just the way math is. So let's talk about the path. Think of this as a path. You start from counting, pre-K and K. You're working on your addition. You're working on those fundamentals, which you'll see in the next part of this video. And then you do pre-algebra, which is technically including things like counting, because pre-algebra just means before algebra. So then you do pre-algebra. Then you do algebra 1 and 2. Notice I circled them together. This right here can help America big time if we simply do algebra 1 and 2 together, and ideally without any breaks in the summer. Just do it together, because algebra is so systematic and objective. And then we have schools that sometimes do algebra 1, take a break, do geometry, and then take a break in the summer, and then do algebra 2. That's too long of a stretch. Let's condense it. Algebra 1 and 2 together. And I can have students finish that in 9 months. There's no reason why people can't do Algebra 1 and 2 in 9 months. Even if you're not a prodigy, like anybody can do that. And so it's important that if we keep it together and have a clear vision, kids should be able to do this. But worst case scenario, just do them back to back and just get it done, right? So if your school needs help transitioning into this model, I'm more than willing to provide that support. Even if they're not using the whole counting to calculus framework, just this right here is gold because your students will save a lot of time. Okay, so we have pre-algebra and then algebra 1 and 2, and then geometry and trig together. I actually recommend you could do them together. Now, pre-calc is technically trig and college algebra. That's the way some textbooks are actually written. Pre-calculus, trig, and college algebra. That is something that I think if you want, just do these together or do them year after year. That's fine. Now, you could get college credit here. And in my framework, you can actually get college credit for your algebra 2 as a college algebra class. So let me go back and explain. We have counting, elementary school math, flowing into pre-algebra, about 5th or 6th grade, kids can do this. And then they flow right in here, about 7th grade, 8th grade, the latest, be done with this series. And then they do geometry and trig. But it's not based on, I'm giving general grade level descriptions, but please know that it's about mastery. And then after geometry, trig, pre-calc, this realm, guess what? They're ready for these courses. But along the way, when you do algebra 1 and 2, why don't you do chemistry at the same time? And when you do geometry, trig, and pre-calc, start your physics journey and flow right into calculus. Physics and calculus are connected, and that's partly because the co-founder inventor of calculus, Sir Isaac Newton, is also the guy in, we say classical mechanics and Newtonian physics. It's the same Newton. Newton was in physics, Newton was in math. Those should be together. Math, chemistry, and physics really should just be taught together. Because when you learn about certain concepts in math, the best application can then be found in chemistry. For example, inverse variation or proportionality, direct variation, Boyle's law, Charles' law. So you learn it in math, but the application is chemistry. So why not just use it at the same time? Same thing goes with certain principles in engineering. As you learn the principles in physics, why don't you use it in engineering at the same time? So this is the framework. This is the counting to calculus curriculum framework. Any school can choose to adopt this framework and they will be operating at the highest level of math and science learning in America if you use this framework. However, I've also written some tools like curriculum underneath this umbrella of this framework. So let me talk briefly about one of these tools. It's called the Counting to Calculus Workbook Set. So the workbook set provides students with a place to write notes for every topic they learn, no matter what, what school they go to. If you learn how to multiply and divide integers, there's a page here for you. Write your notes, show your work. When you learn fractions and decimals, we have pages here dedicated to that. This will be more for those in pre-algebra. And then at the end of these workbooks that I've written, and these workbooks are on Amazon, you can order them from Amazon. These are workbooks. At the end of the workbook, I provide you with a tool. It's called the Tools for Mastering Mathematics Reference Book. Now, every one of these topics is basically summarized at the end here. Okay, so this is an addition table. Then we have a multiplication table. And then we have PEMDAS. We have the properties of real numbers. We have the properties of logarithms. We have divisibility rules. We have classification of real numbers. So basically, imagine you have a math notebook that at the back of the math notebook, you have all the tools that you can refer to help you stay on task. We want you to get to calculus as soon as possible because it's beautiful. No other reason, but just because it's beautiful. And how do we get you there with efficiency? We provide you with a reference book. Engineers use reference books. Doctors use reference books. That's at the back of your journal. Now, this is a sample journal. The actual version now, as I said, is on Amazon. You can order it. This was just a sample that I got. But basically, this is the first one. So this one matches the pre-algebra. Remember when I told you that people should do algebra 1 and 2 together? This is the journal for algebra. So we have a journal for pre-algebra, we have a journal for algebra 1 and 2, we have a journal for geometry and trig, and then we have a journal that guides you into calculus. This is like a sketch of a rocket. This is when you've gotten the pieces of the rocket ready to launch. The third volume is the rocket is launching. This is the geometry and trig one. And then last, lastly, you can fly out. Now, I'm not saying you should go to Mars. I'm just saying if you make a rocket, you can go to space. And that's where we end the journey over here. And then guess what? You have all these classes that you can take. It doesn't matter what grade level you're in, you just follow the journey. So for the next part of this video, I'm just gonna show you a quick picture of all the books that are involved in this curriculum framework. There's books that focus on the pedagogy. There's books that focus on like Singapore math for elementary school. Then there's books that focus on the science and the math. These are all there for you. So look at the series there. One thing I do want to mention is that our students will also be able to study Isaac Newton's book, The Principia. They will also be able to study Euclid's Elements, and then they'll be able to study Leonard Euler's Elements of Algebra. These are some of the best math books ever written in the history of the world. And so we want to give our students the opportunity. As a matter of fact, Euler, that guy, sorry, I dropped his book. Look at this book about him. It says Euler, the master of us all. This Euler guy, we have flashcards that go with our books. This Euler guy is the same guy that wrote that textbook that I showed you. You can study Euler's book. You're going to be a much better student if you study Euler, Newton, Gauss, and Euclid than any student. Like you're going to be one of the best in your school. And then I hope you encourage your classmates then to apply themselves to excellence. So I'll show you a snapshot of my workspace of the books that are involved in the Counting to Calculus curriculum framework. I'll also show you some of the curriculum involved. Where do we go from here? Basically, I'm willing to help your family, help your school, help your institution, help your district to begin to have a bigger vision for math and science learning. So let's show you what books are involved. Let's show you a little clip of the online component, and then hopefully I'll see you in the next video. So stay tuned. This is Amos, the math guy, and I look forward to inspiring the next generation of scientists, mathematicians, and thinkers. Enjoy the rest of the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a blessed day. As I mentioned, this shows you a little bit of our Counting to Calculus framework and the curriculum involved. This is a book I wrote, Tools for Mastering Mathematics, with Nathan Drusett. A few other books I've written, and then one that talks about Singapore's secret to world-class math curriculum, which leads us to the first section of the Counting to Calculus curriculum framework. Notice that we're using Singapore math. They have a pre-K and K, so you could use those. And let me know if you want to order it through us, or you can just order directly from singaporemath.com. So this takes you through the first part of math all the way to the 6 A and B. But please note, no matter what grade level your child is, just keep guiding them along the way with these curriculum. Once they finish this and you feel like your child is good to go in math skills, they could be 7 years old, 8 years old, doesn't matter. When they're ready, then they can officially start the Counting to Calculus framework, this is my sample copy of my first journal that goes with the online component I'll show you shortly. So that's pre-algebra. This is algebra 1, algebra 2. This is geometry trig. This is review all the way to calculus 1. And then I guide you all the way into the world of advanced math and physics and chemistry. Let's come back around. More books in this series. Notice that there's books on science and math history. Newton, Galileo. What is NASA? What is that about? Inventions and technology. We have J. Wiles, Dr. J. Wiles, Birium Builders, where he integrates science and history. By the way, the history of science into his book, this is like elementary school stuff here. And then I have a placeholder for biology, anatomy, and physiology, just using a biochemistry text. But every one of our students should be able to take chemistry and physics, economics. They should be able to explore. Math should not be a hindrance at all. And that's what we're showing. All the way to quantum physics, medical physics, whatever your kid wants to study, if they start with us, they will be here in no time because we follow a mastery-based model. So let me know if you have any questions. These are the curriculum tools. But remember, the framework guides everybody to calculus, statistics, discrete math, linear algebra, and even differential equations. Have a blessed day. And when you sign up on our account for our free math, my open math account, this is the Counting to Calculus online component. This is where you get access to the textbooks that go along with the workbook that my workbooks are available on Amazon. You can order them there, but these are the textbooks. The first thing you could do is the diagnostic test 1 or diagnostic test 2. We created these tests to help us find exact spots that students might be struggling. Next, your students will have access to each of these. When they click on each one, it gives them a breakdown. They can click into introduction of whole numbers. If they click on it, it will lead them to the section for that specific topic. And they basically have access to, in this case, they have access to the whole textbook. This is the pre-algebra textbook that will govern them as they work through the concepts in pre-algebra. Notice it starts with addition and subtraction, area and perimeter, and things like that are discussed in chapter 1. So yeah, this is the first part of the book. Again, this book is free on the website, myopenmath.com. And so they can click on the textbook section they're working on. They can click on videos if they want to review the concept. And then if they want to type in their answers, they can do that here. They can click on resume and type in their answers. But please note that this work goes along with our journal, Accounting to Calculus journal, book 1, which is the everything pre-algebra and elementary school math. So if you go back to Accounting to Calculus, we have the assessments. We have the notes here for each topic. You just follow along, and then it will guide them into the second category, which is Algebra 1 and 2. Same in the same portal right here, Algebra 1 and 2. And then if you keep going down, it guides you into pre-calculus and geometry. And then there's even some videos from, there's a professor that has put together a calculus course here as well. But the goal is to get you to the end of pre-calc and geometry, and then you can, calculus is not the issue. Once you get to calculus, the topics are well defined. Calculus 1 is derivatives, calculus 2 is integrals. This is the online component that you can choose to use, which provides you with a textbook and extra videos and resources to guide you on the journey from counting to calculus. Have a blessed day and please subscribe for more.